everything we do and I do and I talk about today can be done without spending a dime on anything except a GA4 account and all the tracking on your website set up correctly. But the cumbersomeness should not stop you from trying. And even if you can only do a part of the measuring, like do that part, do the part you can do, but don't do nothing.
Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Aymeric Ernoult. If you don't know who he is the co-founder and CEO of Agorapulse, an all-in-one social media management tool that helps marketers track their traffic, conversions, and sales. His podcast is called Social Media ROI Hot Seat, and his course is called How to Measure Social Media with Google Analytics. Aymeric, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm great, Mike. It's great to be here today. I mean, it's been long in the making, but I'm thrilled.
Yes, Aymeric and I go way back, and I just want to let everybody know that today's episode is produced in partnership with this company, Agorapulse. And today, Aymeric and I will explore how to measure the success of your social media marketing activities. Now, before we get into the how-to side of things, Aymeric, I'd love to hear your backstory. How'd you get into social media marketing? Start wherever you want to start.
So I've been an entrepreneur for 24 years, and it's always been social, and it's always been SaaS, software as a service, even when it was not called this way. The first company we started with my co-founder didn't work out. We tried for a long time, but it didn't work out. And we started Agorapulse out of that first company. And the way we started Agorapulse was because I went to a conference and someone asked me, do you do Facebook apps and promotions and contests and sweepstakes? And I said, yeah, we do. Even we didn't at the time. That was 2010, early 2011. And so we started doing Facebook contests and promotions. And one day we got fed up of having kind of an agency and not a software company. We really wanted to have a software company. And we saw a company out of the US that was called Wildfire at the time that was doing those contests and promotions, but in a self-serve SaaS, setup. And we thought that's exactly what we want to do. And that was, mid 2011. So we took all the games, sweepstakes, photo contest, quizzes that we had built for businesses, like bespoke, like an app, like an agency would do, and we industrialized them in one platform, and that's how Agorapulse was born in September of 2011. So when we started this journey of Agorapulse, it was Facebook contest and promotion, basically. And then obviously, as you know, we pivoted away from contests and promotions to social media management, which took a good 3 years because we were bootstrapped, didn't raise money. So we only had 3 developers, which took a long time to pivot a software company like that. But that's how the journey got started. And that's how we went from, contests and promotions to full blown social media management, which was, the choice was that because contest and promotion was high churn. Like people come, they run a contest, they stay for a month or 2 months, and then they leave, which doesn't make for a good business. And we realized that we have to be the tool that someone in the company is using every day. And that's how it led us to build what we have today.
Are you one of those software founders that's more the visionary, or are you more the developer side of it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not the technical guy. That was my co-founder, Ben. I'm more the marketing, finance, support, customer success,
right?
Tax filing.
Well, I remember
that was all that. Yeah.
I remember back in 2013 when we had the very first Social Media Marketing World, you were one of our sponsors that I believe bought a really big space there. I remember you had balloons there and stuff. I don't remember. I think you were even like filming in your booth or something like that. So why don't you tell everybody like what exactly your software does? We'll just spend a second on it and like maybe bring us up to the present, because it's one thing to, be perceived back in the day as simply a piece of software that does social scheduling, right? But I believe you've evolved to so much more than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So first of all, when we started the business, and it's funny that we still have the same obsession that we had 12 years ago. Our homepage said, your Facebook fans aren't worth anything unless you know who they are. So we were already obsessing about how valuable is that? Like, that social media thing is very fashionable, but is it really something you want to do? Is it really worth your time? And 12 years after, it's still the same obsession, but with a completely different product and with a different approach. The approach that we have today is that obviously we are a full-blown social media management suite where you can absolutely schedule content with all the nitty-gritty option that you need, of course, like many businesses Many of the listeners here will know, Sprout Social and the Hootsuite and all them. But you can also engage in conversation and manage all your conversations across the board, wherever they're coming from, which is less common in the tool world. You can do listening, which is even less common, and you can do like super advanced reporting, where you can create reporting exactly the way you want. Those are the common, like, if you go to the higher plan on our competitors in North America and Europe, you're going to see the same thing on paper. The one thing that we, again, because of our obsession from day one, the one thing that we built that's unique to us is the tracking of the conversion and the traffic and the revenue that you're getting from that. And we can talk more about that, but that's really the thing that I'm really proud and excited about at the same time, because it is different, and I think it is needed. And the results that we see from the people who are doing it well are really impressive. And I think when you do that kind of work, when you do the work for that, what you see and what you get is really worth the time you're spending on it.
Excellent. So we are not here to quote unquote shill Emerick's software. We're here to provide actual really cool value that everyone can use, whether or not they decide to use Agorapulse. And what I love about what we're about to talk about here today is this is a real struggle that a lot of marketers face with, which is really just connecting their activities ultimately to their results. But there's some marketers who just are not really even aware that this is important. So let's start with this question. Like, why should marketers pay attention to tracking their activities with their marketing, especially the stuff that they do on social media? Because a lot of them, frankly, probably do not.
Yeah, in general, for marketing, in particular for social media, two things I want to share. One thing as a marketer myself, and one thing as a CEO, so as a company leader. So as a marketer myself, the thing that drives me is to improve day in and day out, is to basically start with something, iterate, do better, test, do better, test, do better, and keep doing better. Because human beings are driven by that force that they always want to improve and get to a better place, right? And as a marketer, you want to see your marketing expanding and growing and keep giving more results. You cannot do that if you don't understand what works and doesn't work. Period. It ends. The story ends there. If you're doing marketing and you have no idea of what pieces of your marketing are performing and what pieces are not, then you cannot improve your marketing, and your career is going to get stuck. And as a marketer, I don't want my career to get stuck. So I want to keep constantly evolve and learn new things. And that's the only way you can do that. So that's as a marketer. And as a CEO, it's even worse, because when I look at the 170 people in the company, if we are going through a rough time and we have to downsize, who are the people I'm going to downsize? I'm going to downsize the ones that I'm not sure they're bringing value to the business. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. All company leaders know that. I'm sure you know that. But when you have to do that, you have to look at something tangible that helps you make a hard decision and say, okay, that person is not bringing enough value to the business. I'm going to shut down their position, or I'm going to get rid of them. And as harsh as this may sound, this is how CEOs reason when things are tough. So if you are doing marketing and you cannot prove that what you're doing is worth doing in some way, shape, or form that a CEO understand, your job will always be at risk, and that's not good for you.
I concur 100% as a fellow CEO. And so many people listening right now are going through challenging times, depending on what kind of role you're in, whether you're running an agency or you're working for an agency, or whether you're working for a small business and you're possibly being threatened by the disintermediation of the kinds of work you used to do because of artificial intelligence. Now more than ever, it's really important that all people listening to my voice understand how to actually quantifiably prove the value that they're providing to the companies that they work for. Yet we still kind of struggle with this when it comes to tracking. So what are some of the big struggles that you feel marketers face when it comes to trying to tackle this big thing?
The main one I see over and over again is that they haven't learned how this is done. Basically, in general, not in social media, but in general. Social media is no exception to every way you do marketing. There are certain foundation that you need to have in your business so you can track and measure what you need to measure. Those foundations are, simple things are, do you have an analytics software? And if you have one, is it set up right?
What kind of software did you say that was?
an analytics software.
Oh, analytics. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yep.
obviously 80% of the world use Google Analytics, but some still don't, and that's step number one. If you don't have an analytics software on your website, you're never going to know what's happening on your website in terms of what is the traffic, how is the traffic behaving once it gets to your website, where are they converting, what kind of traffic is converting, and so on and so forth. So that's
do you have access to that analytics software, right?
Do you have access to? Did you learn to use it? Now there is plenty of free training on. If you use GA, which is GA4, the latest iteration of Google Analytics, which is probably the most widespread piece of software, which is also free to use, by the way. So there's no budget excuse not to use it. If you use that software, there is training all over the place. And I see too many marketers not investing time in learning how things are tracked and how they work, and how you set them up, and how you set the conversion pixels using the
Tag manager.
Yeah, Tag Manager, absolutely. I was looking for the word. Thank you for helping me here.
That's okay.
These things are technical and a little bit complex when you're more on the creative side of marketing. But it's great to be on the creative side of marketing. But if you don't teach yourself and you don't improve your skills in that more analytics side of marketing, then you're definitely missing on this. And I think that's the problem I see the most.
The other side of the equation, though, is maybe you do have access to GA4, Google Analytics 4, and maybe you actually even kind of know where to go get the data. But maybe the problem is that it's just kind of cumbersome and time consuming to kind of keep track of it all. I mean, is that part of it also?
Yeah, it's obviously very cumbersome and time consuming. Like you mentioned earlier, we're not here to talk Agorapulse, and we are not. I mean, everything we do and I talk about today can be done without spending a dime on anything except a GA4 account and all the tracking on your website set up correctly. But the cumbersomeness should not stop you from trying. And even if you can only do a part of the measuring, like do the part you can do, but don't do nothing. That's really the thing I see the most. That's really a pity, is that they could at least spend 2 or 3 hours a week starting to track what they can track, and they don't even start because they feel overwhelmed by the fact that it's really hard to do.
Well, but I think what you're hinting at there is that a tool like yours makes it a little easier because you integrate that data in. Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah. But again, you don't have to spend on the tool. I'm not selling the tool here. I'm selling that you guys have to
but that's
check.
good for people to know, right? Like if you don't want to get lost in Google Analytics 4, and it's easy to get lost. It's like flying a airplane sometimes, the software that you use, like Agorapulse, may provide easier access to this information. But also, I think there's another struggle, which is like, how do you make sense out of all this data, Aymeric? I mean, like when I go into Google Analytics, I mean, I look at time on site, I look at views, and I forget all the other metrics because I have my team going in there. But like, I know we're going to get to that in a little bit, but that's part of the problem, is not knowing exactly what metrics matter. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah. So let's start with, what exactly can we track? We're talking, this is a social media marketing podcast, right? And we're talking about social activities in particular, and we can lump in there other activities as well. But like, so many social marketers have no idea what in the world they should be even tracking.
Yeah. What you can track from social media is exactly the same thing you can track from any other channel: email, advertising, marketing automation, anything. You can track anything that has a link in it, period. It's as simple as that. You may tell all the stories you want. If there's no link in your email, you're not going to track how your email is performing, right?
Right.
If your email is not driving traffic to your website, you're not going to track anything. It's going to be untrackable. If your ads, those don't exist, but well, you could do an ad for a video without a link. If your ad doesn't have a link to your website, you'll never know if your ad is really producing result. You'll have hopes and probably guesses, but you won't know for sure. It's exactly the same on social media. So everything that does not have a link cannot be tracked, and that's number one. And number two, everything that we call that dark social now, so which is kind of the digital version of word of mouth. So if I'm sending you a message on WhatsApp and sending you to, hey, look at that website, it's great, from WhatsApp, because of the way WhatsApp is built and how WhatsApp keeps everything secure and private and anonymous, this is never going to be able to be trackable. We're not going to be able to attribute that to, oh, that's a conversation between Mike and Emmerich on WhatsApp. This is how we got that lead. So that's untrackable. We call it dark social.
Well, and isn't Messenger heading that way too? I mean, hasn't recently Zuckerberg said that they're going to start doing end-to-end encryption on Messenger? I don't know if you read that or not.
They're going to do end-to-end encryption, but if you use trackable links within in the right way, let's put it this way. You're still gonna, that's still gonna go through the system up to your website with the tracking parameters that you're going to be able to attribute.
Well, let's pause for a second here and talk about what you just said there, because I think what you're implying is that if you are using software that allows you to automate, like you mentioned earlier, you can automate the conversation or at least engage in the conversation with your tools. So if you're using any kind of tool, whether it be a bot or whether it be your software, and you provide links, as long as those links are properly encoded, which we're going to get to in a little while, then it could be trackable, even if it's end-to-end encrypted. Is that kind of what you're implying?
Yes, absolutely.
So now this is the scary part though. A lot of what happens on social doesn't have links, right? So we start to think about like much of what we do on social does not have links. So how does the marketer actually like let's just brainstorm what actually has links and what doesn't have links, so we can just kind of help explore that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as with everything, you don't want to be selling on everything you do marketing wise, right?
Right.
Sometimes you just want to be interesting. And sometimes you just want to be viewed as, this kind of company or that kind of company, or the kind of company that supports diversity or that supports, people in the third world or whatever. Like sometimes you're just working on your image. So marketing is not all about direct, tracking direct contribution of marketing to the business. Sometimes it's about something else. And social is oftentimes about something else. And that's okay. Like you don't have to do everything so you can track everything. But if you're tracking nothing, you're missing on the ability to prove to your customers, your boss, your other teammates that, yes, we do social. Like, look, this post got a lot of views and it makes us look amazing. It's an interview of our CEO. We want a lot of people to see it. We don't necessarily want to have a business direct impact of that. We just want that to be seen and to be viewed, and that's okay and that's fine. But some of the stuff you do on social should be directing traffic to your product, to a downloadable that you've built that's really interesting, to a free trial if you offer something for free or a product for free. So all these things, you should have a way to make sure that social is helping you grow them and grow the traffic to them, and you should be able to measure them. So what you can and cannot track, what can and cannot be tracked on social also depends on what percentage do you decide to attribute to the amount of marketing activities that you're okay to do for visibility, branding, positioning, and all these things that will not be directly tracked and attributed to a revenue or conversion on your website, and what is the percentage of those activities that you want to be tracked. And once you've decided what you're comfortable with, then you can apply that to social media as well. And then you can look at all your social channels and say, okay, where can I promote something that's not too salesy and pushy and silly, that adds value to the end user on Facebook? How can I do that on LinkedIn? How can I do that on Instagram? Oh, wait a minute. I cannot put link on Instagram. Okay, can I put? Yes, you can. You have to use stories and you have to use link in bios and those kind of hacks in a way. And then, okay, so what I can do link-wise on LinkedIn and Facebook is going to be X, but what I can do link-wise on Instagram is going to be Y, because it's different, because I cannot put links on my post. So my strategy will be different there. TikTok, even different, because then there's only the link in bio that you can use. So depending on what platform you're present on and the how you feel, you can add value by providing content that's driving to your website in a way or another. You'll adjust that network by network. So.
Yeah. And obviously we can add to this the comment section. People are going to ask you questions depending on what kind of post you put up, and you could direct them to various places. where your products or services are offered, and you could track that. So the first step in tracking, it seems like to me, is to at least identify all the areas across each of the social platforms where you potentially could have a link, right? In the direct messages, in the bios, in the comments, in your ads, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
But, and you also mentioned something really important. If you don't have a link, you can't really track it, right? You can't track it. I mean, full stop, you can't, right? And you want to use a tool like Google Analytics because it is the gold standard. So once we've identified all these things, let's talk about UTM parameters a little bit, because not everybody understands what that is, because it's not, you probably know better than I do. If you just put a link to your website, is Google smart enough to know that it came, for example, from Facebook or Instagram? Or is it strongly advisable that you add UTM parameters on it? And if so, why don't you describe what that is for folks that maybe don't understand that?
Without getting too technical, we created a specific training for that. But yes, Google can know if traffic is coming from Facebook, but it will not know what in Facebook. So what you will see in GA is Facebook got you that many clicks and that many visitors who did those many things. But you will, if you have, let's say you're a franchise and you have 45 different Facebook pages for 45 different restaurants or hotels or whatever it is that you have as local businesses, you're not going to know which one it's coming from. So you're not going to be able to have a granular understanding of what did work and what didn't work. And you remember in the beginning of this conversation, I said, as a marketer, I want to know what worked and what doesn't work, so I can optimize and I can do more of what works and what doesn't work. If you're just relying on GA and the referrer, that's the referrer is what's going to tell you it's coming from Facebook, then your understanding of what's working on Facebook is going to be zero. You're just going to know Facebook is working, but you're not going to know what, and that's not going to allow you to do more of that, and that's the problem. Then if it's coming from different places from Facebook, some sites like news site in general, they're not putting anything in the referrer, so you will not know it's coming from a news site. So I don't know about specific news site, but I would guess that if traffic is coming from the New York Times is not going to tell you, it's not going to give you the referrer to your website. That information isn't going to pass on, so you're not going to know. And more, like Safari is killing a lot of referrers. So depending, it's a complex topic, but depending on the browser you're using, you may or may not have referrer information, and you may or may not know where the traffic's coming from. Hence, the importance of adding tracking parameters to your links when you have control.
Yeah, and just for people that aren't super technical, it's source, campaign, medium, if I'm not mistaken, or I might have the order source, medium, campaign. Is that how it works? Something like that?
Yep.
That sounds about right?
Yep.
And it's just a matter of saying, like, source could be Facebook, medium could be Facebook page, and campaign could be comments, or something like that. You can use any kind of UTM generator to create these. And maybe even some software allows that to be automated. That part I'm not 100% sure about. But that's important data for you to be able to know exactly what kind of things are working. Now, so let's assume we've got the tracking links figured out and we've begun experimenting, or using links everywhere we can. Can you give us some examples of ways that we can use links in social posts that maybe doesn't come across as spammy? I know you have an employee advocacy example that you guys did.
Yeah, so I have a couple of examples. I have a bunch, but I selected a couple that I wanted to highlight today. So one example is ours. So that's very easy. We back in the days we had a free employee advocacy tools. Now we have a paid one. And back in the days we wanted to test, like, is there a thing there? Is there interest in the market? And it was quite hard to promote. And one of the things we decided to do is to go create a search on Twitter for everybody speaking about employee advocacy. And regularly, those people who were talking about employee advocacy had questions about it. How is it good for me? Does anyone has a good experience with that? Do you know what are the best practices? And the strategy here was very simple. It's going back to say, hey, if you're interested by employee advocacy, we just created a free tool. So before you commit to like a $1,000 a month big behemoth of the tool, why don't you try with something free if it's a good fit for you, if it does the job, if your people are engaging with it, if it's actually creating the results that you expect. And so every single time we were going in those, engaging with those Twitter conversations about, hey, by the way, it's a free resource. Like you can't, nothing can be better than something free that you can try and decide if it's good for you or not. And that was, the way we could track. By at the time, we didn't have the automatic tracking in our software, so we did it manually. But the way you can track that is really helping you, knowing if do people click on it, do they convert, like what do they become? Because this is taking time, right? Listening to Twitter and to all these conversations and engaging and having those conversations is time consuming. So you want to know if that time invested in the right place. So you really want to measure, are these people actually signing up and giving my free tool a chance? So that's one example. Another example I have from a company it's a small business that sells plant-based medicine, and their core mission is really to help people who have specific illness to understand what their illness is caused by, and to give them an alternative to traditional medicine, like i.e. plant-based. And I don't know if you're a lot into it, but a lot of people are very passionate about how they treat themselves, how they cure themselves.
Right.
And a lot of people are very passionate about, taking natural medication and not chemical stuff. And the content they create online is all about the illness, the symptoms, how you identify them. And it's really about teaching, giving the tools and the power to the people to be able to understand what they have and what they could do about it, but they're not selling their thing. And it's only in the comment that people are commenting, oh, that's really interesting, I want to learn more, tell me more, what kind of solutions do you have for me? And in the comments, they're going to go and say, hey, if you want to check it out, this is the plant-based thing we have, it's $25, and so on and so forth. Let us know if that's something that can help you. And it's through the comment and the conversation in the comment that they have the links that are driving to the website, but not in the post itself. I know a lot of people think that when you put a link in the main post, you're going to have a lot less reach. So that's one way you could leverage that. And the other way they're leveraging that on Instagram, where you cannot put links anywhere, is by doing stories for the exact same purpose, symptom, the illness, this is how it works, this is what you should know about it. And having a DM CTA at the end. Hey, if you want to learn more about possible plant-based medicine that can help you with this, send us a DM. And it's in the DM, in the conversation, when they've already warmed up, because now they know that you wanted to help them, that they're like, oh yes, I want to know more. Please send me the info. And that's where the link is being sent through a DM, which is tracking revenue attributable to those conversations on Instagram.
What I love about this example that a lot of people maybe don't think about is that when there's a post that does really well on the social platforms like Facebook, for example, and somebody asks a question and then you provide an answer to it, it's not like they're the only one that sees the answer. Like everybody else potentially sees the answer as well, right? So that common question with answer could be popped up to the top as a relevant part of the conversation. And believe it or not, that question could be the same question other people have. And your one answer is now seen by not just that one person, but everybody else who had that one question, right? And you might find, if you're tracking, that you end up getting like 10 links instead of one link on an answer to a question in a comment, because this strategy really works. Did you have one more, or was it two? Because I thought you said you might have had more than one. If you don't, that's okay. I'll move on to my next question.
Oh yeah. On the tracking. So I've seen an interesting thing. I've seen high ticket price items like a house on the beach. So I also saw a real estate agency in the Crystal Coast in North Carolina renting super nice house, beach house, like amazing. More expensive than I can afford, because it's like in the 12K a week kind of rental. And they were tracking rentals from Facebook posts, like 12K a piece. So when you rent 2 weeks with one Facebook post, you're making 24K per post. And before they were doing this, they absolutely had no idea. So when you're in travel, when you're anything a fancy business, like travel, nice house on the beach, nice hotels in a sexy location, those can go direct and sell on social right away, because people are excited, they're interested by what the company has to sell. So I think depending on who you are, you can go and be very, pushy is not the word, but like because then what you have to sell, and people will be interested to buy it directly on social without having to create very complex strategies. Now, if you're a SaaS, B2B SaaS software like me, you have to be creative, because people are not, oh my God, this is amazing what you're doing. I love your product. Can I buy more on
Yeah,
Facebook?
yeah.
That's not going to happen. So you have to be creative, and you have to think about what is it that's going to make us interesting to them. And for example, for us, that was this employee advocacy thing. I think more often than not, when you're B2B and you're high ticket price, you're probably going to look at social media as a way to generate leads and not necessarily sales. And you're going to think about what are they really, really interested about, and how can I use social media, at least in some percentage of my social media activity, to make them, be aware of that and go and download it or view it or watch it. And that's what I'm seeing the most in B2B environment. Travel agencies, they're doing amazingly well with tracking their revenue. I can think of a Australian-based travel agency who's, every time they have a special promotion, goes on Facebook. I think it's once a week, and those, they sell for like 4 or 5K a pop, and the money that's coming in is like amazing. And before they didn't know, they knew it came from Facebook, but they knew it came from that post. And now they know, okay, that Friday promotion works really, really well. Let's do more of them. Let's boost that post. So it allowed them to pinpoint, this is what's working. Let's do more of that, because apparently our audience wants to see more of that and they're interested to buy.
So we're in this journey, having this conversation about how important it is for us as marketers to prove our worth in this era that we're in right now. And we started with the discussion that if you can't track it, then it's going to be really tough. And ideally it has a link, because if it doesn't have a link, it's not trackable. Then we talked about the importance of, including ideally some UTM parameters in there that provide a little bit more granular tracking detail. And then we talked about some creative use cases that we just talked about. Now, let's talk about the next step, right? Which is, let's say we've got some data, because we've been following the advice that Emeric you've been giving us. Now, what's the next thing that we need to be thinking about?
So first of all, we didn't talk too much about UTMs, and I think we need to spend a minute on that. So what a UTM is basically a question mark after your link. So let's say your link is www.socialmediaexaminer.com. Then you have question mark, and then you have, source equal, medium equal, campaign equal, and what's UTM underscore campaigns. Well,
right.
I think most people got me there, understood me there, right? And it's really important that you have a naming convention for those links. That's the same across the board of your company and across the board of every piece that you're posting, whether it's email, social, like anything. And you asked me earlier, what are the things that people struggle with? I touched on, they don't learn the data analytics part of their job, but we didn't touch on, they don't learn how to do UTMs right. But I'm saying this from a place of humility, because as a company, we've been really, really bad at UTMs. And I think it's only like 2 years ago that we eventually put a big Excel, Google spreadsheet with all our names. Like, if it's come from this, then the source should be called this way. If it's paid, if it's Facebook ads, it shouldn't be capital F, capital B, capital A, D, S. It should be all uncapped, like F, B, A, D, S, like no capital.
Well, and by the way, this, for folks that don't know this, it's case sensitive. Okay. It's the only thing that's case sensitive. Like in the world of URLs, nothing is case sensitive. It doesn't matter, but it does matter when it comes to these things. And it's a nightmare, because it treats FB caps different than capital F, lowercase b. You need a standard naming convention, or you are literally going to be pulling your hair out of your head, right?
Yeah. You can recoup the F, capital B, and capital F, not capital B. You can add them up in the Google Sheet and do an addition and get the whole number, but it makes your life much more complex.
Well, especially when you're in the tools trying to make sense out of it, it's not going to work as well. But keep going. Yes.
So there's that. Have the naming convention, and everybody agrees on that naming convention. Then have everyone systematically use those tracking links everywhere. And it's a bit like if some of our listeners have a sales team, they know how hard it is to have your salespeople put information in the CRM. Well, that's the same thing for marketers. How hard it is for marketers to put trackable link to their link. And having that discipline, that day in and day out, that they're using them especially on the places where you're not sure that you're going to have automatic tracking. So that's really, it's not the next step, it's the foundation step that needs to be done. Once you've done that, if you've done that really, really well, you're going to be able to know, looking at GA, looking in the back end of GA, you're going to be able to search, what did come from that network, that specific page, that specific author. Sometimes if you have a team, like we talked about, responding to comments. So something else I see a lot in our customer base is people are using us to respond to comments on their ads, because they're already spending so much money on those ads. They want to make sure that when questions are popping in the comments in the ad, that someone's answering them and someone directing them to the right page and the right answer on their website. And when you do that, you absolutely want to know if are people going to click on those links? Are people going to use those comments to go buy from my company, from my website, thanks to the ad? And doing the tracking for that will require that you do source Facebook, Medium, FBA comments, or FBA ad comment, or whatever you choose. Again, choose the naming and stick with it, and have your people add that manually in and day out, every single time they're adding a link, so you can track that. So that's
also,
the second thing.
I have a little tip too, because we've become UTM analytics freaks over here at Social Media Examiner. On the campaign side of things, we will have like the name of the product, like World 25 for Social Media Marketing World, say World 25, and then there'll be a series of dashes, and in that campaign will contain kind of almost everything, so that we can just look at the campaign parameters. Do you do that kind of stuff too?
Oh my God, you make me so happy. So let me give you another story about another customer of ours who is a concert hall in London. And what they did in the campaign, they added exactly what you did: the name of the author, the name of the show, the date of the show. What else did they have?
Probably the time of the show, maybe, right?
Yeah, the social account on which it was promoted. Again, you will, if you look at GA, you'll know it's coming from Facebook, and it's coming from X, or it's coming from whatever, but you will not know exactly if you have several pages, because you do a page per show or whatever. You're organizing your social promotions as a entertainment place, and so they have all these different parameters manually inserted in the campaign link with underscore between each of them, and then they would go into GA and they would search them. Okay, search everything for that show and tell me everything that we did for that show, and what did we get from that, and then search everything from that date, from that time, from that page, from that everything. Yeah, that was very geeky. I was like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. So very few people do that. It's the minority of the minority who get that far into making sure that they can measure so granularly what they're doing.
We're going to get a little techie here. Google Tag Manager, for people that do not understand what exactly do they need to worry about in Tag Manager specifically? Because my understanding is it's kind of a set it and forget it thing, right? But there's certain kinds of events and activities or whatever you've got to set up in Tag Manager, and then you're good to go to make sure that data gets into Google Analytics 4. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing I've learned about Google, I'm not handling Google Tag Manager. I have not been handling Google Tag Manager for a long time, thank God. Because that would be a problem as a CEO of a 170 people company if I was still that down in the weed. But I remember from back in the days when I was doing it, and what I hear constantly from the guy who's running paid for us is like, you have to have your tag placed in a thank you page for everything you want to measure conversion for. And the mistakes I've seen too often is like they put the tag on the landing page of the thing, but there's no mechanism for a thank you once you've downloaded, viewed, or whatever is the next step you want people to do. Yeah. So the tracking is completely wrong, because you're basically tracking everything that's landing on the page, but not everything that's converting on the page. So I'd say the one thing you have to be careful about, like, do you have a specific page that's going to be triggered when the thing you want them to do is actually going to happen?
Yep. The conversion tracking. That's right. So, what about reporting? Like, let's just assume we've got our UTMs dialed in. We're using Google Analytics. The Tag Manager thing is something that we don't have to worry about. What do we do with the data? How do we interpret the data? What's your thoughts on how to use this data to essentially get to the point where, we're starting to, at least ourselves, feel confident that the work that we're doing is working?
Yeah. So the first high level thing I wanted to say about that is, first and foremost, you have to understand and accept and explain to your team that what you're going to show them is not everything. What you're going to show them is only the tip of the iceberg. Because in 2024, in 2003, digital was very simple. So what you measured was almost everything you got through digital. In 2024, digital is utterly complex. And more and more, when you talk to the CMOs of the world, what you hear is like, it's less and less trackable. So you track less and less. More and more of what's happening to you is happening behind closed doors that you cannot attribute anything to. So I hear that all the time. It's like, oh yeah, but we can only track so little. Why bother? Like why, especially on social, because no links on TikTok, very few links on Instagram. Really hard to track what's coming from YouTube, because yes, there are links on the YouTube description, and I'm actually running a test on that right now. But most of what's happening on YouTube is not coming back through a link. It's more awareness, people hear about you, and so on and so forth. So understand, accept, and explain that what we are tracking is only a portion of the impact of what we do. But that portion is informing us on how everything else is going. So if you're looking at what you're doing on let's say you invest the same amount of time, money, resources on 3 different networks. And when you, at the end of the day, you look at how these networks have participated into the bottom line on your website, and one is overwhelmingly above the 2 others, then at least you know that, okay, even if it's only, like I'd say, I don't know, like it's generated 20K last month, even though you invested much, much more than 20K, and you probably expect much, much more than 20K, but at least you were able to track 20K. And the 2 others, you tracked, I don't know, 3K. What this is telling you is like, I'm only seeing the tip of the iceberg, but there's obviously one of the tip that's much bigger than the others. So it means that the bottom of the iceberg for this one is probably also much, much bigger. So my high level advice is, be aware that you're only measuring the tip of the iceberg, but use that tip as an indication of what the bottom of the iceberg probably looks like, and to allow you to allocate your resources, more intelligently, basically, once you've done that. So that's my high level advice on what do you do with this measurement. Like, take it for what it is, which is an indication of what is working and where you need to allocate more resources.
And a good framework for everybody is to think about surveys. When you survey your audience, you only get a fragment of people to take the survey, and everybody knows it's a representative sample. So as long as you use that framework to convince your boss, hey, this is just a representative sample of the entire campaign, because everything gets blocked, then it allows you to at least make intelligent decisions. So now, how do we take all this information? Let's say we've got these representative samples. How do we use this to prove to our clients or to our boss, hey, we're actually really valuable and we want you to know that? I mean, how do we do it? What do we show them? What do we talk about?
Well, from GA, you can download CSVs, and you download CSVs, you import them into Google Sheets, and from the Google Sheets, you create graphs and additions, and this is the amount of traffic that we got from social, from this, from that, and then you can create every graphic you want from that. Like, this social networks is taking that much of that budget, but is driving that much of our traffic, so it works really well. This one not so well. Do you want to keep doing this as a brand awareness channel, or do you want to reallocate the resource somewhere else, depending on that? So it'll look, the dashboard, the reporting you're going to build exactly the same way you're building any kind of other reporting. I just spent 2 hours with my sales team. We looked at reporting. It's all in Google Sheet. It's all with graphs and bar chart and stuff, and it gives us the insights that we need to say, okay, there's a problem here. There's something working well here. What is it? Can we dig? Can we look into what's working? But it's allowing you to have those conversations about, okay, what do we do with this now? Where when you're only reporting on engagement and reach, it's great, but the conversation is a little less constructive, in a way that you always have someone who will question, yeah, but how is that impact the business? And how are those likes impacting the business? I was looking at a post of one of our customers earlier today that had 7 likes and 19 visitors, link clicks. So what does that tell you? That 7 likes doesn't feel that exciting, but we got 19 people check our website. And if that page is a high converting page, or is a highly valuable page, then now you have more value to that post than you had before. So That's how you use it. You use it to augment the value, the perceived value of the work you do. And again, in terms of, in a technical way, it goes down to, downloading a CSV from GA and working the data to create graphs and stuff, or having a software that can do that for you, obviously, as well.
Emeric, first of all, thank you for equipping so many of the marketers that are watching / listening with at least a framework that they can now gather data so that at least they have it available when and if that time comes where they're challenged, or they can use it proactively to kind of say, hey, boss, notice this is not working over here, but this is really working over here. Maybe we should try this thing over here. I mean, I think data is really the key to everything. Now, Emeric, if people want to find out more about you and or Agorapulse, where do you want to send them?
So about me, LinkedIn is the best place. That is the social network where I'm still active because I have a very busy life. So I had to make choices, and I decided that LinkedIn was the best place for me to be active. So if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me an invite on LinkedIn, put a note in the invite that, hey, I heard you on Social Media Examiner's podcast. I really enjoyed it. I'd love to connect. Because if you don't do that, I will not know where you're coming from. And I have like 20 invites per day, and I'm not accepting most of them because otherwise my LinkedIn would be a mess. If you want to learn more about Agorapulse, we build a dedicated landing page where you can go check a training, and where I spoke at Social Media Marketing World 2 years ago and about that very topic. So my keynote is there. So if you want to learn more about all this, how do you measure, why should you measure, and how can you do it on your own, how can you do it with us? That page is agorapulse.com/SME. So agorapulse.com/SME. And that's probably where you can learn the most about the stuff that we discussed today.
Thank you, Emeric, for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us.
I enjoyed it very much. It was short. There's so much more we could talk about, but at least I hope that put a seed of interest in people's mind. Like, okay, I need to look into that and learn more about this because it sounds like it's important. So thank you.